We're going to really tone up the heat on this because we want to bring that clear into super melt. Let the core kind of cool off. And then drive that heat in, which is causing the clear kind of hopefully cascade down the sides. Spread out. Taking the frit design a little bit with it towards the edges. And we're losing control here. The bead is wobbling. You have a choice. You can keep heating, keep rotating evenly, pull out. If you need to, you can stabilize the wobble a little bit, which often will make it worse once you stop rotating. Fix that, go back, and heat again. Fix the wobble, and heat again. You can really blast down, and somehow I use that gas pressure to press on my bead. I often will not use tools to achieve this result. I could use a marver, but I have found in some instances it's just easier and cleaner to use gas pressure. Rotate. The other thing to kind of figure out about bead making is that the heat you apply to the surface is on the surface initially, and there's a time lag before it penetrates to the core. And we've talked a lot about time lags, but that's a direct and obvious aspect of it, that the heat you apply to the surface acts on the surface first before it acts on the core. But once it gets to the core, since the core is where your structure comes from, that's your form, at that point you start getting really sloppy and the whole thing starts sloshing around. So you have to turn in much greater care. Really kind of speed up your turning sometimes and watching what's happening. I apologize if the spinning makes it really difficult to follow the frit design. And watch out for your angle of rotation as well, because you want it to be on a level plane generally, so that you don't cause it to turn into a pear shape. If you want to use the marver, great, but let the thing sort of settle down. And you can use a flat marver, or you can use that beautiful tool that I've discussed previously, this Osibin shaper. But always turn when you're marvering so you don't develop any flat spots. And remember, you can do this in stages. This is not a one-shot affair. You can also use the flat one. In some ways, the flat one is useful too because it sort of rolls smoother and faster. So as long as you have a steady hand and a good rotational technique, you can achieve good results with the flat marver as well. I'm going to let that heat sink in, and I'm going to keep going for a more elongated form. We had a nice donut shape, but I think I'm going to want, a greater kind of surface area, more barrel. I've introduced a little distortion in the bead, so flash it in the flame, and then you can fix that distortion very gingerly by touching the end. You can put a little bevel in it, which is always nice. On that side, a little bevel. And you can go back and forth until you're driven crazy, beveling it just so. One of my teachers, Lawrence Stump, he had a common phrase. He said, The longer you work on something, the better it does not get. Another great teacher I had was April Zilber, who lives in Santa Cruz. She taught me a lot of techniques about color, the beautiful cell development that I like to practice. If you don't live in Northern California, though, you should be able to find bead-making teachers all over. And you can access them usually through bead-making teachers through bead stores or through the International Society of Glass Bead Makers, isgb.org. There are local chapters all throughout the U.S. and even with international members in France, and Switzerland, Germany, and Japan, to name a few. Okay, this bead is almost done. Since I've been doing a lot of tooling, you definitely want to heat it up a lot to kind of make it all happy again, so there's no chill zones. Glass really doesn't have a memory, so once you heat it, you're going to be pretty good. And after touching a tool, there will be sort of unnatural creases and edges. This heating makes it nice and glossy and removes some of those human-made imperfections. Nature once again triumphs and takes over. The forces of the energy of the flame and gravity render perfect what we got started in our own imperfect way. Anyways, that's how I look at it. Beautiful little frit bead. Kind of a band of striations, really, that were created by frit. If we wanted to, we could put frit on the edges, so you'd have different layers of it. Well, heck, why not? I'll use a different frit. This one is called R191. It's also a Reichenbach color. Also non-compatible, because it's in the 96 COE range. So I heat up the area that I want to get fritted. Melt that in. And these frits are definitely reactive, sort of like striking colors. So what you see is not what you get if you wait and let them cool off. Right now you can hardly see the R191 that I applied, but I've got a sneaking suspicion if I let it cool off or I flash it in the flame a little bit, then the R191 will show up, and it'll be kind of a coppery green gold. Start to see some of the color development. The secret of these frits, I believe, is that they have silver. And silver was used extensively in photographic development. So certain crystalline structures are forming now that create sort of color splotches. It's like a picture gets developed, they become richer and richer with the play of heat and light energy. So very interesting. More and more blue and green is coming out. And this is a segue to another topic for a future segment, which would be the use of metals, actual metals, silver and gold, in the coloration of glass beads. So do a little flame anneal, and then this one will go to bed. And it looks like an apple, like an amber apple. And I can hang out nice and long with this bead because it's so big. It has a lot of internal heat, so it's heat from the core is translating to the outer layers and keeping it from cracking. There you have it, frit bead. And zillions of possibilities with frit are possible. Lots of combinations and different colors. My experience is that frit on different colors does different things. So the R108 is very, very good on cobalt and on the black, and also clear. You get really nice reactions. And the 191 has a lot of very pleasing greens and golds when put on top of topazes and ambers.